Okay, so we're here today to have an interview with Aunt, and I might just get you to introduce yourself first.
My name is Patricia Powell. I'm originally from Gulargambone, and when I got married I moved to Dubbo. I've been living here for nearly 50 odd years. Do I keep going?
Yeah.
And I've got 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. The eldest daughter and my boy, they live in Dubbo, and my middle daughter, she lived in Queensland. She moved up there to be with her husband, and the other 2, they stayed here and brought their children up. I've got 9 grandchildren and 2 little grannies, and they just started school this year. And when I was growing up in Gulargambone, twitching, what do you call it, about my life now, I went to Aboriginal school first.
Tell me about the Aboriginal school you went to.
We had, there was kindergarten up till the 2nd class in the one room, and then the 3rd to about 4th or 5th, I think it was. And then when you did those classes, you went over to the white school. That's what we used to call it, but it was called Gulargambone Central School. And then in 1957, a minister or a governor come to Gulargambone. Don't know his name, I forget. And he was wondering why Aboriginal was on one side and the whites were standing on the other side. And I don't know what went about, but then we got a letter saying that we had to go to the white school, just to have the one school in Gulargambone. So that's what we did, but we didn't want to at first, but we had to do it because that's what we were told, and they closed the Black Aboriginal school down.
And how did you go at school?
Well, it was a bit awkward at first for us all because it was a strange atmosphere, because we've never been in a class with white kids before, and it was a bit awkward. Sometimes there was nasty white kids there. They used to call us names, and some of us didn't like it, but we just had to get along as best we could. But then in the end, I think everybody, all the Aboriginal kids got on fine with them when we told them that, we fronted them and asked them why were they calling us names. And then after that we got on well with them but we didn't fix the dancing classes. We used to have folk dance or whatever they used to call it, but we couldn't do anything about that. They just didn't want to, some of them just didn't want to dance with the Aboriginal girls, but they were told to by the teacher, but they wouldn't touch us because they were probably frightened to get our colour. But then other than that, everybody, it was still a racist town, Gulargambone, but we just, it was our town, that's where our home was. And then we got on, we lived the best we could. We used to live on a mission, but we were all happy on the mission, like we come and go, like other people's family that lived away from Gular, they come back, no problems. But when we couldn't go into a cafe in Gulargambone, there was only the one. We couldn't sit down and have a meal there. We just had to take, whatever, and we had to go outside and eat it because we weren't allowed. And there was only certain Aboriginal men and women that go to the pub. Not everybody could go there.
And how were they able to go to the pub?
Oh, well, they had a card or something to say that they were allowed in the hotel.
So they had a certificate of exemption.
Yeah. So my father was one of the lucky ones, but I think they got in trouble if they were caught getting other blokes, Aboriginal people, any beer or whatever they wanted, wine or other spirits. But
did you ever get a certificate of exemption?
no, not us.
Why not?
I don't know.
Right. So your father was able to go without
he was able to go in there, but and then it was different for us when we went to the pictures. We had open and closed pictures. We had to sit on hard boards, like stools, or sometimes they had the back on them. And while the whites sat in canvas seats up the back in comfort, and it was the same way when it was winter time. We'd have the same seats while they had comfortable seats, not canvas. They had the soft ones, because I went up there. And then it got that way. If we paid the money, we could go up there. So I went up there a few times.
Oh. Did you go all the way through school?
No, I went to year 1, they called it. 1B.
High school.
Yeah, 1B. That was high school. And the teacher told me, because I turned 16 the 1 year, I weren't allowed to go to the next year because I was too old, which I thought was, I sort of cried nearly every day for a week. And Mum couldn't do nothing because they said I was just too old to go to school. Not that I had a good head on this, but I just loved going to school.
But here you are now, you're back at TAFE.
I went to TAFE, I did my year 10 certificate. It took me about 3 years to finish, but I passed it. There's one subject that I couldn't pass was English. It was, I don't know, different language for me, and I just couldn't pass it. But 1 year I passed and I got my certificate, so I was proud. And then I used to back in up till I think it was 98 or 99. 1999. I left school. I left TAFE. I used to do, what do you call it? What's that with gardening? What's that name?
Horticultural?
Yeah, I used to do that. And we used to do a little bit in between.
Yeah.
Between that, like, maths or something like that, because it was involved too. But I left that. I left TAFE so I could watch my daughter's baby till she went to work. Because.
So, what sort of work do your kids do?
Well, Mary, she did what they call it at school.
A teacher's aide?
Yeah. And then when her husband, he went up to Queensland to do a job. I don't know what sort of job, something to do with roadworks, the cement. So she followed him, and she worked in she got a job in the medical profession, something to do with medical. She was in there for a little while, and she got back into the school, and now I think she's been there since. And my daughter, the eldest daughter, she works at a motel. My son works something to do with, he used to work at the hospital in the laundry department, but now he works with disabled people. I don't know how long he's been there for, but I don't work. I lost my husband. I'm a widow now, but we weren't living together for years. So, but we ended up I was sorry when we lost him, and I didn't want anything. I wanted to do, but I thought the kids knew what to do. They'd go around fixing things up better than I would, so I let them go ahead. And my brother and sister, they live here in Dubbo.
So all your families moved here to Dubbo, or?
Yeah, I've only got a sister and brother.
All right, so you've all followed one another?
Oh, sort of. But my sister, she was a nurse. She did her nursing in Canamble.
Okay.
And then when she passed that, she got married, and they Ray Potter from Dubbo, and they moved up here and lived in Dubbo. She got a job up the base hospital, and she had 2 children, and then they moved out to Wiradjuri. They live there now, and she still works. She works sort of changed jobs. Works at the blood bank, and it moved into Darling Street from the hospital. She'd been there for years, and
so what sort of work have you done over the years?
well, I didn't do anything. I used to, before I got married, I used to do home duties. I used to go out to people's places, out to Wiradjuri, not Wiradjuri, but the Blue Mountains out that way. I can't think of the name. I did a couple of people's houses there. I used to stay there, but I didn't like it, so I gave that job up. But then I worked at the school one day a week before
So what did you do in the school?
I had to make sure that the room was tidy when they finished doing the cooking. So, and then I got married, and then I sort of didn't get a job. I looked after my children. That was my main aim to do.
Okay. One of the things that we're doing is giving messages to students that are training at university who might one day end up working with or for Aboriginal people. Are there any messages that you would like to give them, or examples of where there have been conflict and where you might see solutions?
Well, young people today, if they want to get in the workforce, they've got to have a good education and know how to, know how to hold themselves.
What about if these are mainly non-Aboriginal students that are going to come out and work with Aboriginal people?
Well, it sort of goes both ways. They've got to try and have a good education on either side, if you're Aboriginal or non-Aboriginal. You just sort of got to try and work together and just do your, more or less do your job. And there's 2 different cultures, and you sort of got to try and work together to get along. Otherwise, you just got to leave that and go on to something else. And
have you got any examples of where you might have seen problems arise because people didn't try to know about one another?
Well, it's like, I don't know, I've never ever come across it, but I know when Aboriginal people goes to hospital, and if they're pretty sick, like, if they think they're dying, well, the family likes to be there close, and they won't allow them in the room with them, which is wrong, because Aboriginal people, they like to be around their own, because they know they know they're going to lose them and they like to be there. And whereas they reckon other nurses and that, if they're non-Aboriginals, that's not right to them. But I suppose everybody's got their different opinions, but they don't know the Aboriginal way because they like to be around family, and even when they're in a house, they like to have people close to them, their family mainly. But it's just not the non-Aboriginal way, because you got to they try and teach you to live their way, which we don't want to. We like our way as it was, because that's all we knew. And the Aboriginal people, they love their family and they want their family to be around, one another, especially in the sad times. And the non-Aboriginal can't understand our culture, which is wrong. They should learn either both sides. They should learn either one a culture, and then they can understand how they live. And it was hard back then for our elders, because they couldn't do anything right. They, had to live away from town, and I didn't really have much to do with that sort of thing. But we knew it was racist where I come from, but we had to get on the best way we could, and that's what we did.
So your learning was that you needed to get on with non-Aboriginal people to make...
Yeah, well, we just had to, that was our home. We just had to do the best we could because we had nowhere else to go. And plus we lived on the mission, we was happy there. No hassles or anything. And we weren't, not like some missions, they were under, way back, they were under, what do you call it? They had to get permission for their people from other towns to go on to their mission. But when I was growing up, they come and go just as they pleased, like we had relations from other towns. They just come in, they didn't have to ask permission to come on that mission because we had no one. We was like just normal people.
But you just lived on your own? We
lived on it. We just got around, lived on the way best we could, which was happy. And then we just automatically moved up to town. And I don't know how it come about, but I got married and I moved on to Dubbo, and where I was raised my family. I had 3 kids. They had their own lives and they got their own children, and I've got 2 little grannies which I look forward to every time I wake up. I wonder how they're going, and I'm always ringing their mothers to see how the little one went on, how she got, because she cries. She don't like leaving the mother when she goes to school. She hangs on to her. But what the children's got to do now, the kids, on both non-Aboriginal and Aboriginal, they got to try and work together and get an education for them to get on, wherever they want to be.
Okay. Is there a final message you want to give to non-Aboriginal students who when they start working, who come out and might work with Aboriginal people?
Well, you just sort of, what I not long ago said, you got to get on with one another, do your work, and just get on the best. If you can't get on with one another, you just got to tag along and try and do the best you can. Because I know it is a bit hard.
Okay, thank you.